My beloved child, my heart overflows with love for each of you as I reach out across the divide. Every soul that walks this earth is precious beyond measure, beyond understanding. I see you, truly see you, in ways that no one else can. I feel every tear that falls from your eyes, every silent scream that never leaves your lips, every burden that weighs upon your shoulders until you feel you might collapse. When darkness surrounds you and you cannot find your way, know that I am there, even when you feel most abandoned. The nights when you cry yourself to sleep, believing no one hears your pain, I hear you. The moments when your knees buckle beneath the weight of your struggles, I am there to catch you. The times when your prayers seem to echo in an empty room, they reach me, every single one. Some of you walk through life carrying wounds so deep that you believe they define you. Some hide behind masks of strength when inside you're crumbling. Some have been told you are unworthy, unlovable, beyond redemption. These are lies that crush the spirit and dim the divine light within you. Your suffering breaks my heart. When you hurt, I hurt with you. When you struggle to take another step forward, I feel the weight of each footfall. The pain you endure is not invisible to me. I see it all. The betrayals that have shattered your trust, the losses that have left gaping holes in your hearts, the failures that haunt your thoughts in quiet moments. There are those among you who have known such profound sorrow that you question whether joy will ever return. There are those who have experienced such cruelty that you struggle to believe in goodness. There are those who have been so deeply wounded that you cannot imagine healing is possible. But I tell you this, with all the compassion and certainty of my being, there is nothing, absolutely nothing, that can separate you from love. Not your mistakes, not your doubts, not your past, not the darkness that sometimes feels like it might consume you whole. When you feel you have strayed too far, fallen too hard, sinned too greatly, remember that my love does not come with conditions. It does not diminish in the face of your imperfections. It does not withdraw when you question or doubt. My arms remain eternally open, waiting to embrace you exactly as you are, not as you think you should be. The world may have taught you that you must earn love, that you must be perfect to be worthy. This is not so. You are worthy of love simply because you exist. Your worth is inherent, unchangeable, eternal. It cannot be taken from you, no matter what others have said, no matter what you have done, no matter how far you believe you have fallen. In your darkest hours, when hope seems like a distant memory, when faith feels like a luxury you cannot afford, when love seems like something meant for everyone but you, these are the moments when I am closest, though you may not feel my presence. These are the moments when my love surrounds you most completely, though you may not sense it. The pain you carry is real. I would never diminish it or ask you to ignore it. Your tears are sacred. Your grief has meaning. Your struggles matter, but they do not define you, and they will not last forever. Even the deepest wounds can heal. Even the heaviest burdens can be lifted. Even the most profound darkness will eventually give way to that seem never to come. Some have begged for signs that appear absent. Some have pleaded for relief that feels eternally delayed. The silence that greets these prayers can feel like abandonment, like evidence that you are alone in your suffering. But there is purpose even in these painful seasons, though that purpose may remain hidden from view. Your lives unfold in ways you cannot always understand. The path forward is not always clear. The reasons behind your suffering are not always apparent. But there is meaning in your journey, even when that meaning eludes you. There is growth in your struggles, even when that growth is imperceptible. There is transformation occurring within you, even when you feel stagnant. Look at how far you have come. Remember the obstacles you have already overcome. Consider the strength you have discovered in yourself that you never knew existed. You have survived every difficult day thus far. This is no small achievement. You have continued to move forward, even when the way was shrouded in fog. You have chosen to keep living, keep trying, keep hoping, even when despair threatened to overwhelm you. When you cannot find the strength to believe in yourself, I believe in you. When you cannot see your own beauty, I see it clearly. When you cannot fathom your own potential, I know exactly what you are capable of becoming. My faith in you never wavers, even when your faith in yourself does. Reach out to one another in love. Be gentle with those who are suffering. Show compassion to those who seem undeserving of it. Forgive those who have wounded you, not for their sake, but for your own freedom. Love those who are difficult to love, for they are often those who need love the most desperately. In serving others, you will find healing for your own broken places. In offering compassion, you will discover compassion for yourself. In extending grace, you will learn to receive it. In giving love freely, you will remember how deeply loved you already are. The journey of healing is rarely linear. There will be steps forward and steps back. There will be moments of profound progress and moments of disappointing regression. Be patient with this process. Be gentle with yourself as you navigate it. Small steps forward are still steps forward. Slow healing is still healing. When you feel weak, I am your strength. When you feel lost, I am your guide. When you feel alone, I am your companion. When you feel afraid, I am your courage. When you feel worthless, I am the voice reminding you of your infinite value. When you feel unloved, I am the love that surrounds you, sustains you, and will never abandon you. Rest in this truth. You are seen in your entirety, not just your public face, but your private struggles. You are known completely, not just your actions, but your intentions. You are loved unconditionally, not despite your imperfections, but including them. Nothing can change this. Nothing can diminish it. Nothing can take. There are days when the weight of existence feels too heavy to bear, when each breath becomes a conscious effort, when the very act of continuing seems beyond your strength. I know these moments intimately. I feel them with you. Every pang of grief, every stab of rejection, every crushing wave of despair that threatens to pull you under. In these moments, you are never alone, though loneliness may be your closest companion. Some of you have endured traumas so severe that words cannot contain them. Some have suffered losses so profound that they have carved empty spaces within you that nothing seems to fill. Some have been betrayed by those you trusted most deeply, leaving wounds that refuse to heal. Some have been crushed beneath the weight of expectations, your own and others, until you can hardly remember who you truly are beneath the pressure. When you lie awake at night, your mind racing with anxious thoughts, your heart pounding with unnamed fears, your soul aching with questions that have no easy answers. I am there beside you in that darkness. When tears soak your pillow and sobs rack your body, and you wonder if anyone in this vast universe cares whether you live or die. I care, deeply, completely, eternally. The pain of rejection burns like fire within your heart. The shame of failure clings to you like a shadow. The burden of regret follows you wherever you go. I see how these things haunt you, how they color your perception of yourself, how they make you question your very right to exist in this world. These feelings are real, but they are not the truth of who you are. There are those among you who have never known true acceptance, who have always felt like outsiders looking in, observers rather than participants in life's joys. There are those who have been judged harshly for your differences, condemned for circumstances beyond your control, excluded because you did not fit the narrow definitions of worth that others imposed upon you. My heart breaks for the loneliness you have endured, for the belonging you have been denied. When childhood should have been a time of safety and nurturing, some of you experienced profound harm. When adolescence should have been a time of discovery and growth, some of you were burdened with responsibilities beyond your years. When adulthood should have brought the fruits of your labor, some of you found only more struggle, more disappointment, more reasons to question whether life will ever offer you the peace you so desperately seek. The injustices you have suffered cry out to heaven. The inequities you face daily wear away at your spirit. The cruelties, both small and large, that you endure simply for being who you are. These things matter to me. They are not trivial. They are not imagined. They are real wounds inflicted upon your precious soul, and I see each one with perfect clarity. Sometimes you wonder if your prayers disappear into the void. Sometimes you question whether faith is merely a comforting fiction. Sometimes you doubt whether there is any purpose to your suffering, any meaning to your existence, any point to continuing the struggle day after day after exhausting day. These doubts do not offend me. They do not diminish my love for you. They make you human, beautifully, authentically, wonderfully human. The world can be unspeakably cruel. It can strip away your dignity, challenge your hope, test your resilience beyond what seems endurable. It can leave you feeling like a shell of who you once were or who you dreamed of becoming. In those moments when you feel utterly defeated, when you cannot imagine how to take even one more step forward, that is when my love surrounds you most completely, though you may feel it least. Your tears are sacred to me. Each one is collected, honored, remembered. Your suffering is not meaningless, though meaning may elude you now. Your cries for help are never ignored, though the response may come in ways you do not expect, or in timing you do not understand. The silence that sometimes greets your deepest questions is not absence. It is presence too profound for words. Some of you walk through life carrying shame so heavy it bends your spirit. Shame for things done to you that were never your fault. Shame for mistakes made when you knew no better. Shame for falling short of impossible standards. Shame for being human in a world that demands perfection. Let me lift this burden from your shoulders. There is no shame in my presence, only love that sees you completely. When depression clouds your vision and makes even the simplest tasks feel monumental. When anxiety fills your mind with fearful scenarios and robs you of peace. When addiction holds you in its grasp and makes you feel powerless to break free. When grief hollows you out until you barely recognize yourself. These struggles do not define you. They are experiences you are having, not the truth of who you are. I weep with those whose hearts have been shattered by loss. The parent who has lost a child, the spouse who has lost a partner, the child who has lost a parent, the person who has lost a dream. I see how these losses change you, how they create a before and after in your life, how they sometimes make you feel like a stranger in your own existence. Your grief is a testament to your capacity for love, and I honor both your pain and the love that caused it. For those who have been marginalized, whose voices have been silenced, whose worth has been questioned because of your identity, I see you in all your magnificent uniqueness. The diversity of humanity is not a mistake to be corrected, but a beauty to be celebrated. You were created with divine intentionality, and the qualities that others have judged or rejected are part of what makes you preciously, irreplaceably you. When you feel you have failed too many times to deserve another chance, when you believe you have strayed too far to find your way back, when you fear you have damaged yourself or others beyond repair, when you cannot imagine forgiveness being possible for what you have done or what has been done to you, remember that love's capacity for restoration is limitless, and no heart is beyond healing, no soul beyond redemption. The comparison that plagues your mind, measuring your worst against others' best, your struggles against others' successes, your behind the scenes against others' highlight reels. This is not how I see you. I do not rank or grade or judge my child against one another. Each journey is unique, each timeline individual, each process sacred in its own right. Your worth does not depend on outpacing others or meeting arbitrary milestones. In moments when despair threatens to consume you entirely, when you cannot see beyond the pain of the present moment, when you wonder whether continuing is worth the effort, please hear this truth with every fiber of your being. You are needed here. Your presence matters. The light within you, however dimmed it may feel, is essential to this world. The story of humanity would be incomplete without the chapter that is uniquely yours. The masks you wear to protect yourself from further harm. I see beneath them to the authentic soul that longs to be known. The walls you have built around your heart. I understand why they are there, and I honor your need for safety. The parts of yourself you hide from others, or even from your own awareness. These are not hidden from love's gaze. You are known completely and loved without reservation, every aspect of your complex, beautiful self. For those whose bodies have become battlegrounds, through illness, through disability, through injury, through age, I see your courage in facing each day. The limitations that frustrate you, the pain that exhausts you, the changes that disorient you. These challenges are not punishments. They do not decrease your value. They are part of the earthly journey, not reflections of your worth or evidence of abandonment. When words fail you in prayer, when rituals bring no comfort, when sacred texts seem distant or confusing, when religious communities have wounded rather than healed you, when spiritual practices that once sustained you now feel empty. These experiences do not signify failure or faithlessness. The journey of the soul is rarely linear, and seasons of questioning are as sacred as seasons. Sometimes the most profound connections happen in our most broken places. It is in those shattered spaces where you feel most vulnerable, most exposed, most afraid, that transformation begins. The cracks in your heart are not signs of weakness. They are openings through which light can enter, and through which your own inner light can shine more brightly into a world desperate for authenticity. I have seen you curl inward with shame, believing your struggles make you unworthy of love. I have watched you hide your tears, fearing that vulnerability equals weakness. I have felt your hesitation to reach out, convinced that your needs are burdens to others. These beliefs pierce my heart because they keep you isolated in your pain when connection is what your soul most deeply craves. Some of you have experienced such profound betrayal that trust seems not just difficult but dangerous. Some have been so consistently disappointed that hope feels like a cruel joke. Some have been so thoroughly judged that you cannot imagine acceptance. Some have been so deeply wounded that you cannot fathom healing. The protective walls you've built around your heart may feel necessary, but they also prevent the very love you long for and see only flaws. When you review your life and see only mistakes, when you consider your future and see only limitations, when you assess your worth and find yourself wanting. These moments of harsh self-judgment break my heart because I see you so differently, as magnificently complex, gloriously imperfect, endlessly valuable, and infinitely loved. The voices that whisper you are not enough, not smart enough, not attractive enough, not successful enough, not good enough. These voices lie to you. They drown out the truth of your inherent worthiness. They convince you that love must be earned through perfect performance, when in reality, love is your birthright, freely given, impossible to lose, regardless of your achievements or failures. For those whose childhoods were battlegrounds rather than sanctuaries. For those whose formative years taught you that love is conditional, that safety is temporary, that needs are burdensome. For those who learned to make yourself small, to silence your voice, to deny your own truth in order to survive. My heart weeps for what you endured, for the foundation of fear upon which you were forced to build your life. The panic that grips you without warning. The flashbacks that catapult you back into past trauma. The nightmares that rob you of rest. The triggers that make everyday situations feel threatening. These responses are not weaknesses or failures. They are your mind and body's honest reaction to experiences that overwhelmed your capacity to cope. Your nervous system is telling its truth, and that truth deserves compassion, not judgment. When you feel pulled under by the undertow of depression, when getting out of bed requires heroic effort, when the simplest tasks feel monumentally difficult, when joy seems like a distant memory, I sit with you in that darkness. When anxiety fills your mind with worst-case scenarios, when your heart races with nameless dread, when your thoughts spiral beyond your control, I remain steadfast beside you, anchoring you in love that remains constant even when everything else feels chaotic. Some of you have been carrying burdens that were never yours to bear, responsibilities thrust upon you too early, expectations no child should face, family dynamics that forced you into roles beyond your years. The exhaustion you feel is real. The resentment that sometimes surfaces is valid. The grief for the childhood you deserved but did not receive is justified. Your feelings matter, and acknowledging them is not selfish, but necessary for healing. The trauma stored in your body speaks a language of tension, of illness, of pain. Your physical symptoms are not imaginary. They are manifestations of wounds that run deeper than flesh. The connection between your emotional and physical well-being is profound and real. Healing requires honoring both, attending to body and spirit with equal tenderness, acknowledging that what happens to your soul happens to your body as well. When addiction holds you in its grasp, whether to substances, behaviors, or relationships that harm you, the shame you feel only strengthens its power. Beneath every addiction lies pain seeking relief, emptiness longing to be filled, wounds desperate for numbing. Your struggles with addiction do not reflect moral failure, but human suffering in need of compassion, connection, and holistic healing that addresses the roots, not just the symptoms. For those who have been rejected because of who you love, how you identify, or how you express yourself. For those whose very existence has been deemed controversial or immoral by others. For those who have been told that aspects of your identity make you unworthy of belonging. The pain of this rejection cuts uniquely deep because it targets not just what you do, but who you are. Please know that divine love encompasses all of who you are. Your identity is not a mistake to be corrected, but a reality to be embraced. The sense of alienation that follows you, the feeling of being perpetually misunderstood, the experience of moving through life as if separated from others by an invisible wall, the loneliness that persists even in crowded rooms. These experiences reflect not your failure to connect, but the depth of your longing for authentic connection. Your soul knows what it needs to be truly seen, deeply known, and completely accepted. Some of you struggle will not be satisfied with less. Forgiving others who have harmed you, forgiving circumstances that have limited you, forgiving yourselves for perceived failures and actual mistakes. This struggle is not a spiritual shortcoming, but a sign of how seriously you take both harm and healing. Forgiveness is not a single decision, but a process that unfolds gradually, not a denial of pain, but an eventual release from its ongoing power to define you. When you feel you have wasted time, missed opportunities, taken wrong turns that cannot be undone, when regret becomes a constant companion, coloring your perception of past, present, and future, when what if and if only plague your thoughts. These feelings can become a prison, keeping you trapped in a past that cannot be changed, rather than present to the life that is still unfolding before you, still rich with possibility despite what has been lost. The comparison that torments you, measuring your journey against others' journeys, your struggles against others' apparent ease, your behind the scenes against others' highlight reels. This habit of comparison steals your joy and distorts your perception. Each soul's path is unique, each timeline individual, each process sacred in its own right. Your worth does not depend on matching others' progress or meeting arbitrary milestones. For those living with chronic illness, with disability, with daily pain that others cannot see or understand, for those whose bodies present challenges that others take for granted overcoming, for those whose energy must be carefully rationed, whose activities must be thoughtfully planned, whose limitations must be respected to avoid greater suffering. Your adaptability in the face of these challenges is not weakness, but profound strength. Not failure, but extraordinary resilience. The world often measures value in productivity, in achievement, in constant motion. It rewards doing over being, output over presence, visible success over invisible growth. These values directly contradict the truth of your inherent worth, which exists independent of what you produce or achieve. Your value lies in who you are, not what you do, in your capacity for love, for growth, for connection, for transformation. When grief overwhelms you, grief for people you've lost, for relationships that have ended, for opportunities that have passed, for versions of yourself that no longer exist, for dreams that will never materialize. This grief deserves space and expression. It is not something to overcome or move past, but an experience to move through. a natural response to loss that reflects the depth of your capacity to love and to hope. Some of you have experienced such profound disillusionment with institutions, with communities, with belief systems, with people you trusted, that cynicism feels like the only safe response. The betrayal you've experienced is real. The harm done to you matters. The caution you now feel is understandable. But beneath that protective cynicism lies a heart that still longs for something trustworthy, for connection that will not wound, for meaning that will sustain rather than collapse when tested. For those who feel you have failed at the role society deems most important, as parents, as partners, as providers, as caretakers. The guilt that haunts you, the fear that you've caused irreparable damage, the sense that you have not lived up to your own ideals or others' expectations. These feelings, while painful, reflect how deeply you care, how seriously you take your responsibilities, how much you want to contribute positively to others' lives. The exhaustion that comes from constantly masking who you truly are, the energy expended in trying to appear normal or acceptable to others, the fear of what might happen if people saw the real you, your struggles, your differences, your unique way of experiencing the world. This performance is draining your spirit. You are not created to live behind a mask, but to express your authentic self with all its beautiful complexity. My precious ones, in the quietest moments when doubt creeps in like a shadow, I am there. In the chaos of your most overwhelming days, I am there. In the emptiness that follows loss, I am there. My presence does not depend on your awareness of it, your belief in it, or your ability to feel it. It simply is, constant, unwavering, eternal, like the air that surrounds you, unseen but essential for life. Some days, your prayers feel like pebbles thrown into an endless void. You speak words into seemingly empty space and wonder if anyone hears, if anyone cares, if anyone responds. The heaviness of that silence can feel like abandonment, like confirmation of your deepest fears that you truly are alone in this vast universe. This experience doesn't reflect reality, but rather the limitations of human perception in the grip of mental illness, the distorted thinking of depression that convinces you the darkness will never lift, the relentless vigilance of anxiety that keeps you perpetually braced for disaster, the intrusive thoughts of OCD that circle endlessly, the fragmented reality of psychosis that makes you question what is real. These conditions are not spiritual failures or character flaws, but genuine illnesses that affect your brain, your perception, your very experience of being alive. When you feel you've reached the absolute end of your strength, when continuing seems impossible, when hope feels extinguished, when the weight of your circumstances threatens to crush you completely, it is then that love carries you. Not in some abstract, metaphorical sense, but in tangible reality. The breath that continues to enter and leave your body. The heart that continues to beat. The courage that allows you to face one more day. These are not solely your own doing, but evidence of a power greater than yourself sustaining you. The frustration you feel when healing doesn't follow the timeline you expected. The impatience that arises when growth seems imperceptibly slow. The anger that surfaces when setbacks occur, just when progress seemed assured. These emotions are not signs of spiritual immaturity, but honest human reactions to the messy, non-linear nature of transformation. Healing rarely follows a straight line. It spirals, circles back, takes unexpected detours before moving forward again. Some of you navigate worlds that were not designed with you in mind. Systems that exclude rather than include. Environments that disable rather than enable. Communities that reject rather than embrace. The daily struggle to be seen, to be accommodated, to be valued in these spaces is exhausting. The constant need to educate others about your reality drains precious energy. The battle for basic dignity and access is one you should never have had to fight. For those who have experienced religious trauma, who have been wounded by the very communities meant to nurture your spirit, who have had sacred texts weaponized against you, who have been told that God's love is conditional upon your conformity, who have been rejected in the name of righteousness. These experiences distort your perception of divine love, making it seem harsh and exclusionary when it is, in truth, the most inclusive force in existence. The cultural messages that bombard you daily, that your body is wrong, that your appearance determines your value, that aging is something to fear and fight, that conformity to narrow standards is the price of acceptance. These toxic narratives seep into your consciousness and whisper lies about your worth. They keep you focused on external validation rather than internal truth, on superficial attributes rather than soul-deep beauty. When you feel fundamentally different from those around you, when your mind processes information uniquely, when your emotions run deeper than others seem to experience, when your sensitivities make everyday experiences overwhelming, when your perspective reveals what others miss. These differences are not defects, but divine diversity. They allow you to offer what no one else can, to see what others cannot, to create connections others might never forge. For those who have survived what seemed unsurvivable, catastrophic loss, violent assault, profound betrayal, natural disaster, war, displacement, persecution. The fact that you continue to breathe, to function, to move forward in any capacity is nothing short of miraculous. Your resilience is not just personal strength, but evidence of something transcendent working within you. Something that refuses to be extinguished, even by the most devastating circumstances. The particular anguish of watching someone you love suffer, a child struggling with illness or disability, a partner battling addiction, a parent declining into dementia, a friend trapped in destructive patterns. This helplessness can feel more excruciating than personal pain because your instinct to protect, to fix, to save those you love crashes against the limitations of what is possible. This is love's most difficult lesson. That presence is sometimes all we can offer when we desperately wish to do more. When you're trapped in cycles that feel impossible to break, patterns of self-sabotage, relationship dynamics that repeat despite your best intentions, financial struggles that persist despite your efforts, health issues that return despite treatment. These cycles can make you feel powerless, as if your life is happening to you rather than being shaped by you. Breaking free requires not just individual will, but collective support, not just determination, but deep understanding of the complex roots of being misunderstood, having your intentions questioned, your experiences dismissed, your perspective rejected, your truth denied. This invalidation cuts to the core of your being because it contradicts your lived reality and makes you question your own perceptions. Being truly seen and believed is not a luxury, but a fundamental human need, essential for both emotional well-being and spiritual growth. For those who have lost faith, not just in religious institutions, but in humanity itself, in the possibility of justice, in the hope for a better world, in the existence of goodness that outweighs evil. This disillusionment is not spiritual failure, but an honest response to witnessing or experiencing profound harm. The path back to hope is not through denial of this reality, but through finding meaning within it, through choosing to contribute to healing despite having experienced wounding. The particular suffering of being ostracized from your community, whether family, cultural group, religious organization, or social circle, for being who you authentically are. This rejection strikes at your fundamental need for belonging and can leave lasting trauma. Yet within this painful experience lies the opportunity to build new connections based not on conformity, but on genuine acceptance, to create chosen family that loves you not despite, but because of who you truly are. When you stand at crossroads of impossible choices, decisions with no clear right answer, paths with significant sacrifice, no matter which way you turn, situations where any choice will cause harm alongside good. These moments reveal the limitations of human wisdom and the complexity of mortal existence. The grace is not in making perfect choices, but in bringing your full consciousness, your deepest values, and your most compassionate intentions to these difficult decisions. For those who feel caught between worlds, between cultures, between identities, between belief systems, between stages of life, this liminality can feel like belonging nowhere completely, while simultaneously holding perspective on multiple realities. What feels like displacement is actually unique positioning, allowing you to be a bridge, a translator, a connector in ways that those firmly rooted in a single context cannot be. The particular grief of environmental destruction, witnessing the suffering of other species, the loss of biodiversity, the poisoning of air and water, the changes to our climate. This grief is not excessive or misplaced, but an appropriate response to genuine loss. It reflects your deep connection to the broader web of life, your innate understanding that human well-being is inseparable from the health of our planet home. When your body betrays you, through illness that limits what you can do, through pain that dominates your awareness, through changes you didn't choose and cannot control. The fear this generates, the identity crisis it often triggers, the grieving process for what has been lost, the challenge of redefining yourself beyond physical capability. These experiences are profound spiritual journeys disguised as medical conditions, invitations to discover dimensions of yourself beyond the physical. For those who feel they came into this world with a specific purpose, but cannot seem to discover or fulfill it, who sense an internal calling, but find external obstacles at every turn, who glimpse what's possible, but struggle to bring it into reality. This disconnect between vision and manifestation can feel like cosmic cruel joke. Yet these very obstacles often forge the precise qualities, connections, and insights necessary for your unique contribution to take its most powerful form. The particular challenge of being gifted with extraordinary sensitivity, whether emotional, sensory, intellectual, or spiritual. This heightened awareness allows you to perceive beauty, truth, and possibility that others miss, but it also means you feel pain, injustice, and disharmony with greater intensity. What others can ignore, you cannot. What others can compartmentalize, you experience as whole being impact. This sensitivity is not weakness, but a form of strength that requires exceptional self-care to sustain. There exists a particular anguish when you feel utterly misaligned with your own life, when your external circumstances bear no resemblance to your internal truth, when you move through days that feel like wearing someone else's skin, when you speak words that taste foreign on your tongue, when you fulfill roles that constrict rather than express your essence. This misalignment creates not just unhappiness, but a soul-deep exhaustion that no amount of rest seems to remedy. I see those who sacrifice authenticity for security, who silence their deepest knowing to maintain harmony, who diminish their light to avoid threatening others, who abandon dreams that seem too audacious or impractical. The slow suffocation of compromising your truth exacts a terrible cost, not just to your joy, but to the world that needs precisely the gifts that make you uniquely you, the contributions that can come only from your particular voice, the exquisite vulnerability of creative expression, of placing your heart's work before others, exposing your inner landscape through art or music or writing or dance, offering your perspective, knowing it may be misunderstood or rejected. This courage to create despite fear is one of humanity's most beautiful qualities. This willingness to translate soul into form, to make visible what exists in the realm of spirit, to bridge worlds through the language of creativity. For those walking through the shadowlands of profound transition, the disorientation of identity reformation, the vertigo of foundational change, the liminal space between who you were and who you are becoming. These thresholds are not just challenging, but sacred, not just uncomfortable, but transformative. The very uncertainty that makes them feel treacherous also makes them fertile ground for the most significant growth, the deepest wisdom, the most authentic rebirth. When you find yourself utterly alone in your perspective, seeing what others don't see, questioning what others accept without thought, challenging what others consider beyond question, this isolation can feel like madness, like somehow you've lost touch with reality rather than perceiving a dimension of it that remains invisible to those around you. Trust the clarity that comes not from external consensus, but from internal resonance with truth that transcends cultural conditioning. The crushing weight of expectations, those placed upon you by family, by society, by spiritual communities, by yourself. The exhausting performance of trying to fulfill these often contradictory demands. The fear of disappointing those whose approval feels necessary for survival. The confusion of separating authentic desire from internalized shoulds. These pressures distort your relationship with yourself and with divine love, which never demands performance, but invites authentic presence. For those who have experienced profound disillusionment, with leaders who proved corrupt, with communities that revealed themselves as toxic, with belief systems that crumbled under scrutiny, with truths that turned out to be partial at best and harmful at worst. This loss of certainty can feel like spiritual homelessness, like being cast adrift without compass or map. Yet this very disorientation often precedes the discovery of more authentic, nuanced, and life-giving truth. The particular sorrow of realizing that someone you love cannot meet you where you are, cannot understand your experience, cannot support your growth, cannot accept your authentic self, cannot accompany you on your journey. This incompatibility forces impossible choices between self-betrayal and relationship, between truth and connection, between growth and belonging. These partings, whether temporary or permanent, carry a unique grief, even when necessary for well-being. when your efforts to heal seem to uncover ever deeper layers of wounding, when addressing one issue reveals three more beneath it, when progress is followed by regression, when old patterns resurface just when you thought you'd moved beyond them. This process can feel endless, exhausting, even futile. Yet this spiral nature of healing reflects not failure, but thoroughness, not lack of progress, but commitment to genuine transformation rather than superficial change. The stunning intensity of loving a child, the fierce protectiveness, the overwhelming responsibility, the constant vulnerability of having your heart walking outside your body, the staggering fear of failing someone so dependent on you, the daily surrender of your own needs, the profound joy alongside the relentless demands. This love stretches human capacity to its limits and beyond, requiring a quality of presence and sacrifice that transcends the terrain of serious illness, the shock of diagnosis, the disorientation of medical terminology suddenly central to your existence, the surreal quality of life divided into before and after, the roller coaster of treatment with its hopes and disappointments, the changing relationship with a body that seems suddenly foreign or hostile. This journey demands a particular courage, a moment-by-moment recalibration of expectations, a constant balancing of realism and hope. The excruciating tension of living between worlds, between generations with different values, between cultures with conflicting expectations, between communities with opposing beliefs, between old ways that provided stability and new paths that promise authenticity. This position requires constant translation, perpetual navigation, exhausting diplomacy. Yet it also grants unique perspective, allowing you to see beyond single viewpoints to more comprehensive truth. When loneliness becomes your constant companion, not just the absence of others, but the absence of meaningful connection, even in others' presence, the experience of moving through life fundamentally unseen, the quiet desperation of touching only the surface of others while longing for soul-deep recognition. This isolation isn't just emotionally painful, but physically harmful, contrary to the deeply relational nature of human beings who were created for community, for belonging, for love expressed and received. The particular burden of those with heightened empathy, who feel others' pain as if it were your own, who absorb emotional atmospheres without conscious choice, who cannot shield yourself from the suffering that surrounds you. This sensitivity is both gift and challenge, allowing deep compassion and connection, but requiring exceptional boundaries and self-care to prevent being overwhelmed by others' emotional states that you experience as your own. For those whose trust has been catastrophically betrayed, by parents who should have protected you, by partners who promised fidelity, by friends who exposed vulnerability, by leaders who exploited faith, by systems meant to ensure justice. This violation strikes at the core of your ability to feel safe in relationship, to risk openness, to believe in goodness. Rebuilding trust after such betrayal is not naive but courageous, not forgetting but choosing to live beyond the wounds of the past. The dissonance between your internal experience and how others perceive you. Being seen as strong when you feel broken, as successful when you feel like an imposter, as spiritual when you feel lost, as having it all together when you're barely holding on. This gap between perception and reality intensifies loneliness and reinforces the illusion that you must maintain the facade rather than risk the vulnerability of being truly known with all your struggles, doubts, and imperfections. when grief ambushes you long after others expect you to have moved on, a song that brings tears without warning, a holiday that reopens the wound of absence, a milestone that highlights what has been lost, a dream about someone gone that feels so real you awaken to lose them all over again. These moments are not setbacks, but natural expressions of love that continues beyond death, connections that transcend physical presence, bonds that remain unbroken despite separation. The profound disorientation of spiritual deconstruction, questioning beliefs once held as absolute truth, discovering the human fingerprints on doctrines presented as divine revelation, recognizing the cultural conditioning within religious teachings, feeling both liberated and terrified as familiar frameworks dissolve. This journey often feels like dying, like losing foundation beneath your feet, like betraying not just a belief system, but your own past self who found meaning there. For those navigating the complexities of forgiveness, the misunderstanding that it means excusing harm, forgetting injury, or reconciling with those who remain dangerous, the pressure to forgive prematurely before full acknowledgement of the wound, the false guilt for being unable to release resentment through sheer will, the truth that genuine forgiveness cannot be forced, but emerges gradually through a process of honest grief, appropriate anger, and eventual release from the prison of bitterness. The existential vertigo of confronting mortality, not just intellectually, but viscerally, whether through serious illness, near-death experience, or profound loss that shatters the illusion of permanence. This awareness can initially bring terror, nihilism, or despair as the mind struggles to encompass its own ending. Yet facing death honestly can ultimately transform how you live, stripping away the trivial, clarifying values, intensifying appreciation for authentic spiritual experiences happen outside religious contexts, in forests rather than temples, in silence rather than sermon, in questions rather than answers, in doubt rather than certainty. The confusion this creates when communities equate spirituality with specific beliefs or practices. The loneliness of connection with the sacred that doesn't fit established categories or languages. The challenge of honoring your direct experience when it contradicts traditional teaching. The particular suffering of being highly conscious in unconscious systems, seeing dynamics others deny, naming elephants in rooms others pretend are empty, challenging norms others accept without question. This awareness often leads to being labeled difficult, negative, or troublemaking rather than truthful. The temptation to silence yourself for acceptance versus the sole cost of complicity with what you know is harmful creates an excruciating double bind. My cherished ones, there exists a particular form of spiritual desolation that words struggle to capture. Ours, when not only does heaven seem silent, but your very core feels hollow, as if something essential has been extracted from within you. These are not merely moments of doubt, but a cosmic emptiness, what the ancient mystics called the dark night of the soul. In these profound deserts, when even the memory of connection feels distant, know that this apparent absence is, paradoxically, a form of presence so intimate that it transcends your ability to perceive it separately from yourself. The quiet agony of watching someone you love slowly disappear into dementia or cognitive decline, present physically, yet increasingly absent in all other ways. This gradual vanishing creates a unique form of anticipatory grief, forcing you to mourn someone still before you, to continually adjust to new losses while simultaneously treasuring moments of connection that grow increasingly rare and unpredictable. This journey asks impossible things of the human heart: to be fully present with what is while grieving what was and what will never be. For those who discover in midlife or beyond that much of your identity was constructed to please others, to fulfill expectations, to survive environments that require performance rather than authenticity. The vertigo of realizing you've lived decades not fully as yourself, but as an adaptation, a carefully crafted response to what felt safe or acceptable. The staggering question that follows: if not this, then who am I truly? The terrifying freedom of second birth, of choosing now to live from essence rather than conditioning. The crushing isolation of being the one who remembers when others have chosen to forget. Carrying the truth of family secrets, of historical injustices, of institutional abuse, of collective trauma that others minimize or deny. This burden of witness when others choose comfort over honesty creates profound loneliness and often leads to being scapegoated as the problem rather than recognized as the truth teller. Your willingness to see clearly, to name reality, to refuse collusion with convenient lies is sacred work, even when it comes at great personal cost. When chronic pain becomes your constant companion, dictating what you can do, where you can go, how you can participate in life. The invisibility of this suffering often leads to being misunderstood, disbelieved, or accused of exaggeration. The exhaustion of explaining, justifying, proving what should be simply accepted. The particular grief of making peace with a body that feels like both self and adversary, of finding meaning in a life circumscribed by limitations you never chose and cannot escape. The soul-deep fatigue that comes not from physical exertion, but from years of striving, pursuing goals that were never truly yours, seeking validation in achievements that left you empty even when attained, measuring worth by metrics that ignored your deepest values, chasing horizons that continuously receded. This exhaustion cannot be remedied by rest alone, but requires radical reorientation, a courageous questioning of what constitutes success, a willingness to define value by internal resonance. Those who have experienced the peculiar wound of conditional love, affection that must be earned through achievement, belonging contingent upon conformity, acceptance offered only when you fulfill others' expectations, connection that evaporates when you express needs or boundaries. This distortion creates deep insecurity, persistent anxiety about worthiness, and constant vigilance to avoid rejection. Healing requires nothing less than complete reimagining of love's nature, from transaction to unconditional presence, from performance to acceptance of your essential being. The profound disillusionment that follows spiritual abuse, when sacred teachings are weaponized to control rather than liberate, when divine love is portrayed as conditional and punitive, when legitimate questions are labeled as dangerous or demonic, when community becomes a mechanism for enforcing conformity rather than nurturing authentic growth. This betrayal strikes at the most vulnerable, trusting part of the human spirit, creating wounds that require extraordinary gentleness to heal. When your sensitivity, which allows you to perceive beauty, truth, and connection with exceptional clarity, also leaves you vulnerable to being overwhelmed by stimuli. Others barely notice. Lights too bright, sounds too loud, emotions too intense, energies too chaotic. This heightened awareness can make navigating conventional environments exhausting, leading to withdrawal that others misinterpret as antisocial rather than necessary self-protection. Your sensitivity is not weakness, but a different way of interfacing with reality that offers unique gifts alongside undeniable challenges. The particular sorrow of being neurodivergent in a world designed for neurotypical minds, having to translate yourself constantly, being pathologized for natural ways of thinking and perceiving, having your struggles dismissed because they're invisible, being expected to adapt to environments that actively harm you while those around you make minimal accommodations. This ongoing mismatch between your brain's wiring and societal expectations creates chronic stress that compounds the intrinsic challenges of processing information differently. For those who have experienced the specific trauma of medical gaslighting, having symptoms dismissed, concerns minimized, experiences disbelieved by the very professionals from whom you sought help. This betrayal by those in positions of authority and expertise creates not just physical harm through delayed diagnosis and treatment, but profound psychological damage, doubting your own perceptions, questioning your sanity, blaming yourself for illnesses beyond your control, and developing terror of seeking necessary care in the future. The existential isolation of being highly rational in an increasingly irrational world, watching as misinformation spreads, as evidence is dismissed in favor of ideology, as conspiracy theories replace critical thinking, as emotion overwhelms factual analysis. This position creates a particular form of loneliness, a sense of witnessing collective madness while being powerless to intervene effectively. The temptation to either withdraw completely or compromise your commitment to truth in order to maintain connection presents an excruciating dilemma. When your vocation, your soul's purpose, requires pursuing a path with little external validation, minimal financial reward, or significant opposition from practical-minded loved ones. The courage required to follow inner calling rather than conventional success. The faith needed to continue creating, serving, building, or teaching when visible results seem painfully slow or non-existent. The wisdom to distinguish between temporary obstacles that require persistence and genuine redirection that requires flexibility. The peculiar suffering of being highly conscious in unconscious systems, seeing patterns others miss, recognizing dysfunction others normalize, identifying root causes while others address only symptoms. This awareness often leads to being labeled troublemaker, pessimist, or critic rather than prophet or healer. The exhaustion of trying to create change in resistant environments, the temptation to silence yourself for acceptance, the sole cost of complicity with what you know is harmful. For those who have experienced the specific devastation of betrayal by someone you trusted completely, a spouse's infidelity, a business partner's deception, a mentor's exploitation, a friend's abandonment at your moment of greatest vulnerability. This violation creates trauma that extends far beyond the particular relationship, affecting your ability to trust not just others, but your own judgment, your own perceptions, your own capacity to discern character and intention of ecological awareness, bearing witness to species extinction, habitat destruction, climate destabilization, and the countless forms of suffering these changes inflict on vulnerable beings. This grief is not personal, but planetary, not individual, but collective, not pathological, but an appropriate response to genuine loss. The challenge of continuing to love this damaged world, to fight for what can still be saved, to find joy despite sorrow, to create meaning within undeniable tragedy. When your consciousness expands faster than your community can accommodate, through spiritual awakening, intellectual breakthrough, political radicalization, or healing that reveals previously normalized dysfunction. The painful choice between authentic growth and belonging. The loneliness of seeing what cannot be unseen while loved ones remain unable or unwilling to see alongside you. The grief of outgrowing relationships that once formed the foundation of your identity and support system. The peculiar disorientation of living in transitional times, between cultural paradigms, between economic systems, between technological eras, between ecological realities. The vertigo of navigating when old maps no longer apply, but new ones have yet to be created. The challenge of making meaningful choices, raising child, building communities, and creating purpose within unprecedented uncertainty about humanity's shared future on this planet. For those who have experienced profound disappointment in your own capacity for change, setting intentions you couldn't maintain, making promises to yourself you couldn't keep, believing transformation would be linear and straightforward, only to find yourself cycling through familiar patterns despite your best efforts. The shame of perceived failure, the discouragement of repeated relapse, the fear that meaningful change might be impossible despite genuine desire and sincere effort, the unique anguish of watching someone you love self-destruct through addiction, through abusive relationships, through self-sabotage, through rejection of help, through patterns that lead inexorably toward suffering. The helplessness of recognizing that you cannot save another person from their own choices, cannot want healing for them more than they want it for themselves, cannot protect them from consequences that might ultimately be necessary for their awakening. When your deepest wounds came not from what was done, but from what was not done, the absence of protection, the lack of affirmation, the missing mirroring, the neglect of legitimate needs, the failure to be truly seen and valued in your uniqueness. These invisible injuries create damage equally real, yet harder to identify, explain, or heal than overt abuse. The empty spaces where love should have been leave distinctive scars, persistent feelings of abandonment, fundamental questions about worthiness, profound difficulty trusting that others will remain present. My most treasured child, there are moments in your earthly journey when you stand at the precipice of who you have been and who you are becoming. Transformation so profound, it feels like death and rebirth, occurring simultaneously within your still-breathing body. These threshold spaces, though terrifying, are sacred ground. The disorientation you feel is not punishment, but initiation, not abandonment, but invitation into deeper dimensions of being that cannot be accessed without the dissolution of what was. The particular anguish of those who bear prophetic vision in blind times, those who perceive impending crisis, while others continue business as usual, who recognize patterns leading toward collective harm, who sense dangers still invisible to conventional perception. This foresight creates a specific type of isolation, both the burden of knowledge others dismiss and the responsibility to speak truth others reject as alarmist or impossible. Your clarity is not delusion, but perception beyond current consensus, not paranoia, but awareness navigating lifetime after profound trauma, who find themselves inhabiting a fundamentally different reality than those who have not experienced what you have experienced. Like aliens walking undetected among humans, like time travelers witnessing a world that feels simultaneously familiar and unrecognizable. The exhaustion of translation, of pretending normalcy, of participating in conversations about trivial concerns while carrying knowledge of suffering beyond what others can imagine. This separate reality is not hallucination, but the perspective that comes from having seen behind the veil of safety that others still take for granted. The exquisite vulnerability of truly authentic connection, moments when you risk removing all masks, all performance, all protective layers to stand fully revealed before another human being, knowing you might be rejected, misunderstood, or wounded in your most exposed state. This willingness to be completely seen, with all your flaws and contradictions, requires courage that transcends ordinary bravery. These encounters, whether met with acceptance or rejection, are sacred opportunities to experience the liberation that comes only through radical honesty. When inherited ancestral trauma manifests in your body, your relationships, your reflexive responses to threat, patterns of hypervigilance, disconnection, or overwhelming emotion that seem disproportionate to present circumstances because they originate not in your personal history, but in wounds carried in your lineage across generations. These reactions are not character flaws or mental illness, but your system's attempt to protect you from dangers that existed before your birth, but remain encoded in your nervous system, awaiting conscious recognition and intentional healing. The profound isolation of being exceptionally gifted, perceiving connections others miss, understanding concepts with unusual speed and depth, experiencing both ideas and emotions with uncommon intensity. This difference often leads not to celebration, but to alienation, not to recognition, but to pathologizing, not to appropriate challenge, but to demands that you suppress your natural pace and perception to maintain others' comfort. The loneliness of holding back, dumbing down, hiding capacities that threaten rather than inspire those around you. For those who have experienced spiritual emergence or awakening that destabilized your entire sense of reality, episodes dismissed as psychosis or breakdown by conventional medicine, but recognized across wisdom traditions as potential breakthrough. The terror of ego dissolution without conceptual framework to understand the process. The difficulty integrating transcendent experiences into ordinary functioning. The challenge of finding genuine guidance rather than either psychiatric reduction or spiritual bypass of legitimate psychological needs during this vulnerable transition. The peculiar grief of recovering memories previously lost to trauma. Mourning events that occurred decades ago but are emotionally current due to recent conscious access. Processing pain that feels simultaneously ancient and immediate. Grieving both the original wound and the lost years spent in unconscious adaptation to unrecognized injury. This non-linear relationship with time creates unique therapeutic challenges, requiring holding both adult perspective and child experience, both historical truth and present healing, both acknowledgement of what was stolen and commitment to reclaiming what remains. When chronic illness forces complete reimagining of identity, surrendering dreams and capacities previously central to your sense of self, discovering worth beyond productivity in a culture that equates value with output, finding meaning in being rather than doing, when ambition and achievement have structured your entire understanding of purpose. This involuntary initiation into limitation often precedes expansion of an entirely different order, deepening perception of what truly matters, developing presence that transcends activity, discovering essence beneath the accumulated caring for the dying, witnessing the thinning of the veil between worlds, participating in another soul's final passage, holding space for both terror and transcendence, fear and surrender, regret and completion. This threshold work reveals the stunning brevity of human existence, the ultimate insignificance of concerns that seemed paramount just days earlier, the astonishing simplicity of what matters at life's end: being loved, being seen, being forgiven, being assured that those left behind will somehow be okay. For those whose authenticity threatens systems dependent on conformity, whose truth-telling destabilizes family myths, whose boundary setting disrupts dysfunctional dynamics, whose healing exposes wounds others prefer to deny, whose growth reveals stagnation others choose not to acknowledge. The backlash that follows genuine transformation, manipulation to resume former roles, accusations of selfishness or mental instability, intensified attempts to control as your autonomy increases, the painful revelation that some relationships cannot survive your becoming who you truly are, the unique dissonance experienced by highly sensitive people in a desensitized world, processing at frequencies others cannot perceive, registering information others filter unconsciously, responding to subtleties others dismiss as irrelevant. This heightened awareness often leads to overwhelm in environments designed for less sensitive nervous systems, spaces too loud, schedules too rigid, expectations too numerous, stimulation too constant. Your sensitivity is not weakness, but specialized perception with distinctive gifts alongside undeniable challenges. When synchronicity becomes so prevalent in your experience that coincidence seems statistically impossible, meaningful connections between inner and outer events, repeated numerical patterns, dreams that manifest in waking life, precisely timed encounters that alter your trajectory. The disorientation of perceiving an underlying intelligence, guiding what others consider random circumstance. The challenge of discerning genuine pattern from projection, of remaining grounded while recognizing the mysterious orchestration that suggests purpose beyond rational explanation. The profound fatigue that comes from sustained activism, witnessing injustice that others ignore, fighting systems designed to exhaust resistance, sacrificing personal well-being for collective liberation, experiencing repeated disappointment when change comes too slowly despite enormous effort. This exhaustion is both physical and existential, both personal and political, both immediate and cumulative across generations of struggle. The challenge of maintaining hope without denying reality, of continuing the work without being consumed by it, of finding joy with an unwavering commitment to justice. For those living with the aftermath of natural or human-made disaster, homes destroyed, communities scattered, landscapes transformed beyond recognition, sense of safety permanently altered. The particular grief of environmental refugees, of climate displacement, of watching beloved places become uninhabitable through no fault of your own. The challenge of creating meaning after catastrophic loss, of rebuilding not just physical structures, but sense of place, of belonging, of continuity between past and future, when present reality has been so fundamentally disrupted. The complexity of navigating life after near-death experience, returning profoundly changed to relationships and responsibilities that expect pre-experience consistency, integrating perspective that transcends ordinary concerns into daily existence that still requires attending to mundane details, attempting to communicate insights from beyond conceptual language to those who have not glimpsed beyond the veil. The loneliness of being forever altered by direct encounter with what most can only theorize about or believe in abstractly. When your physical appearance subjects you to constant dehumanization, being reduced to your body rather than recognized as a complex, multi-dimensional being, having your intellect, character, and contributions dismissed or overlooked because others cannot see past surface judgment, experiencing daily microaggressions that individually seem minor but cumulatively create traumatic stress. The exhaustion of either fighting these perceptions or attempting to compensate for them. The toll of being perpetually misperceived by a culture obsessed with arbitrary challenge of maintaining long-term commitment to partnerships, to vocations, to communities, to spiritual practices, through inevitable seasons of disillusionment when initial inspiration fades, when growth requires confronting shadow rather than experiencing bliss, when comfort and security reveal themselves as insufficient motivation for continuing difficult work of authentic relationship. The wisdom of distinguishing between temporary resistance, requiring renewed dedication, and genuine completion, requiring courageous release of what has served its purpose. For those whose minds process information in non-linear ways, connecting seemingly unrelated concepts, perceiving patterns across disparate domains, thinking in images or sensations rather than sequential logic, experiencing revelations as instantaneous downloads rather than step-by-step reasoning. The frustration of translating these insights into formats others can comprehend, of being dismissed as scattered or incoherent when your understanding simply follows different organizational principles than conventional thought, of having genuine brilliance, pathologized rather than recognized. My beloved child, I see you. I know your heart, your pain, your struggles, and the silent tears you wipe away when no one is watching. You think no one understands, but I do. I have always been with you. When you were lost, I was guiding you. When you were broken, I was holding you. Even when you felt alone, I was right beside you. Today, I am asking you to trust me, to take one step of faith, to believe that I am working in your life, even when you cannot see it. Will you listen to my voice? Will you follow me? Subscribe to MP Jesus today and share this message with 20 people. This is not just an ordinary task. This is an act of faith, a sign that you are willing to be part of something greater. Do this with love in your heart, and I promise by tomorrow, one of your wishes will be fulfilled. But I do not ask you to do this only for yourself. I ask you to do it for others. There are people in this world who are suffering in ways you cannot imagine. There are children who go to sleep hungry, shivering in the cold, feeling forgotten by the world. But you have the power to change that. I have blessed you so that you may bless others. Click the Buy Me a Coffee link in the description. This is not just about coffee. This is about love, about kindness, about showing someone that they are not alone. Every small act of giving is a reflection of my love through you. After you give, comment the quantity so we may see how many of my child have been helped because of you. Let your giving be a testimony of your faith. Let your kindness be a reflection of my love. When you give to those in need, you are giving directly to me. I see your heart. I see your love. And I will reward you in ways you never imagined. And as a sign of your faith, type Amen in the comments. This is more than just a word. It is a declaration that you trust me, that you believe in my promises, that you are ready for the miracles I am about to release into your life. I am with you always. In your joy, I celebrate. In your pain, I carry you. In your giving, I shine through you. You are never alone. I am working in your life, even in ways you cannot see. Go now, my child. Be the light. Be the blessing. Let love be your greatest act of faith. And watch how I will move in your life. I love you, my son. Amen.